tragedy. A young girl dies after being struck by a car near Lismore.
A driver, allegedly drunk and texting, slams into a family in Sydney, leaving a 4-year-old fighting for life.
The strawberry sabotage spreads to Guyra and Inverell on the Northern Tablelands.
And Marine Park backflip. The New South Wales government axes no fishing zones from Newcastle to Wollongong.
This is NBN News with Paul Lobb and Natasha Beyersdorf.
Good evening. A 9-year-old girl struck by a car in northern New South Wales has died in hospital. Police investigations are underway, with the driver believed to have been travelling over the speed limit through a residential area. NBN News reporter Samantha Pote filed this report a short time ago from Lismore Hospital.
The Lismore community is in mourning tonight following the tragic death of a 9-year-old girl. At 9 this morning, emergency services were called to Maclean's Ridges following reports the girl had been hit by a car. Paramedics arrived to find her mother performing CPR. They treated the child at the scene before transporting her to Lismore-based hospital, where she later died. The Hyundai station wagon is believed to have been travelling at 70 kilometres an hour in a residential area. Its driver, a 54-year-old man, was also taken to Lismore-based hospital for mandatory blood and urine testing and treated for shock. Officers from the Richmond Police District established a crime scene, which is being examined by forensic police. Crash investigation are still on scene. Cameron Road is expected to be closed for several hours. Any witnesses are urged to contact police.
A 4-year-old girl on holidays from Hong Kong is fighting for her life in hospital after her family was hit by a car in Sydney's northwest. A 50-year-old Kellyville woman has been charged with a string of offences, including drink driving and using a mobile phone while behind the wheel.
A white SUV swings around a corner onto Heslett Road, suddenly swerving into a family of 4 who were waiting to cross. Brake lights appear, but it's far too late. The 4-year-old girl bearing the brunt of the impact, receiving critical head injuries.
A little girl screaming and another woman.
Detectives say behind the wheel was 50-year-old Lisa Mottram, drink driving and using her mobile phone.
The police will allege that she was texting, sending and receiving text messages at the time. Her blood alcohol reading was a mid-range PCA, which was 0.113.
The 4-year-old was put in an induced coma and taken to the Children's Hospital at Westmead. Her mother, father and aunt, all here on holidays from Hong Kong, were also seriously injured.
It's a very dangerous combination. I mean, no one should get behind the wheel with any alcohol to that extent, but on top of that, to be using your mobile phone is extremely dangerous.
The 50-year-old driver didn't appear from her Kellyville home today. Her friends say she was too distraught.
She was really shocked. She just was beside herself and she was in tears. Really bad for her. Out of character, way out of character.
Mottram will face court next month.
The New South Wales government has abandoned plans to set up no fishing zones along parts of New South Wales coast and in Sydney Harbour.
The backflip has left fishermen rejoicing, but conservationists say it will destroy our waters.
Casting a line in our blue backyard is part and parcel of life for many in the harbour city.
Just a flathead, dusky flathead, so they're prolific through the harbour.
But a state government plan to ban people from fishing in certain areas has been killed off almost as quickly as it was floated.
We are taking the fishing lockouts off the table when it comes to the future of this marine park in Sydney Harbour.
The original idea was to create 25 new marine parks from Newcastle to Wollongong, making fishing illegal in places like Chowder Bay around Mossman, Camp Cove and Nielsen Park in the harbour, Bronte to Coogee, Cape Banks at La Perouse and parts of Botany Bay. But fishers across Sydney were never going to let them get away with it.
I think they've severely underestimated what the anglers are going to do, because I've never seen the fishing community, or actually the general public, so fired up against these lockouts.
Conservationists say the government's change of heart is bad for the harbour.
A marine park that doesn't have highly protected sanctuary zones is like having a national park that allows hunting.
The decision to shelve these plans was made 3 weeks ago when Cabinet met in Queanbeyan. The government's mind has now turned to other measures like no anchor points around Sydney Harbour and slowing boat speeds down, in certain zones.
They've stuffed this massively. They've empowered 900,000 fishers in New South Wales who've come out all over them.
Just don't call this a backflip.
Let's be clear, this is not a backflip. The government has been out consulting. We said that this was part of the process and we want to be judged on the outcome.
Chris O'Keefe, NBN News.
State Transport Minister Andrew Constance has taken aim at Newcastle's state member, calling for him to step aside ahead of the next state election. It came during a whirlwind tour of the city's new light rail network.
Rolling into town, the Andrew Constance Express. First stop, Tim Crackenthorpe.
I'd urge people to give Crackers a whip and get rid of him. I'm calling on him to get out of the road. I mean, this is the biggest detractor in town.
The Transport Minister unleashing on the Labor state member.
He's the whinger-in-chief in terms of Newcastle. I just wish he'd stop sulking, get out of the road, let positive people govern for Newcastle. I mean, even the Labor mayor in Newcastle, I mean, there's an example. What a breath of fresh air.
This minister shouldn't be playing politics, should be focusing on the things that are important to the people of Newcastle.
The extraordinary attack came as the minister jumped on board the new light rail vehicle. A first look inside the city's new tram had Mr. Constance very much in the driver's seat, announcing construction work will finish by the end of September, meaning traffic will return to the city.
To remove the Berlin Wall between the city and the waterfront. We've now opened up the city for everybody.
Testing of this new light rail vehicle will begin next month. As to when the entire service is up and running, well, the minister wouldn't confirm a date today, but says it will be sooner than expected.
Well, I do know the date, but I'm not going to say it. What I will say is it'll be in the first couple of months of 2019.
Next stop, Civic Station. Planning Minister Anthony Robertson unveiling the city's first master plan. At least he tried to.
What this represents is real jobs. Jobs for people like those behind me here today.
Union protesters picketing and frustrating officials like Parliamentary Secretary for the Hunters, Scott McDonald.
You people actually teach students preschoolers.
Things were slightly more cordial at Market Street Lawn.
Right, if you actually put money in there, it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, how do you know we didn't?
Well, that's a good point.
The former Newcastle railway station still a work in progress, but set to reopen to the public by the end of the month. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
The skyline of Newcastle changed dramatically overnight as contractors lopped off the top of the Queen's Wharf Tower. Welders worked to dismantle the dome until the early hours of the morning before a 300-ton crane lifted and lowered it to the ground. It marks the first stage in a demolition process running throughout this week, with the observation deck and steel staircase the next to go. Lord Mayor Newcastle has called it the first step towards restoring views of the city.
University of Newcastle staff lined Hunter Street this morning, placards in hand calling for job security and better pay. The 24-hour strike comes amid stalling negotiations over an enterprise agreement.
With purple signs and megaphones at the ready, university staff walked off the job, queuing from one end of the New Space precinct to the other. Students and community members rallying in support. The National Tertiary Education Union claims a high proportion of staff are trying to make ends meet on contract work and are suffering as a result.
Creates all of those sort of uncertainties for people, and they know that the work's there, but they're not sure whether they'll be re-employed the following year to do that work. People who have been on contracts, one-year contracts rolling for 10, 15, 20 years. So we're saying that work they're doing is ongoing, and in fact there should be processes for them to convert into more permanent employment.
The union is in an ongoing dispute with the university, accusing it of failing to compromise on an enterprise agreement. Staff have been offered a pay increase of 1.9%, but they say that's well below the rate of inflation.
Which amounts to a real pay cut, we think, for staff, and that's happening at a time when members of senior management are having quite large pay increases, so staff find that a bit offensive.
In a statement, the University of Newcastle said it was disappointing the union had chosen to take further action and that the strike was causing disruption for students. Jacinta Lee, NBN News.